All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. It is your host, Antonio Davido, with the Armchair Athlete Sports Talk podcast. Well, and I got a familiar voice, face, and name here in the Yakima Valley. Seton Hall alum, cross-country runner over there in New Jersey at Seton Hall, as well as your voice for high school sports here in the Yakima Valley. Everyone give it up for Ryan Flannery here. Thank you, Ryan, for joining the show.
I appreciate you, man. Just like old times, right?
I know. I was about to let everyone know. For those that have tuned in for a while since we started this podcast, Ryan is an OG with it. You know, we started this up back 2021, and well, life gets busy. You know, we all got our things going on, our own family stuff going on, and I got bored, and Ryan's busy with his gig on Hot 99.7 here, the voice from 2 to 7, Ryan on the radio.
Yes,
Locally,
sir.
so give that a listen, as well as your voice here for high school sports. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about sports here this evening, as well as kind of the media side of things and how to maybe get into it. You know, the career path Ryan took, and also just kind of what goes into planning a game of the week. And, well, we had some good times also calling that, being the play-by-play host as well here in the Valley. And we've called some crazy games too, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But Ryan, without further ado, man, how you doing?
Dude, I'm doing good, man. Life is good for sure. You know, we're back into high school football season for the Bymark Game of the Week, which me and you were the OG hosts of, and you know, just looking forward to a good football season. We had a really good season last year with all three sports, and we're just looking forward to continuing on the legacy. And you know, we've been doing it for since we started 3 years ago, and man, it's just been a lot of fun, you know. And I'm enjoying it, man. I really am. I'm enjoying it.
I remember our first game, man. Our first game, we were out at Sela.
Yes.
And we
baseball,
had
right?
Yeah, baseball. Technical difficulties getting it on the radio. Our GM was actually there watching. His former teammate for Sun was there. She's like, "Why aren't you guys on?" And then our operations manager, Justin, scrambling to get it going. It was a mess, but we got it going. And, you know, we had a good run there for a few years. And then, of course, I stepped away to the family life, you know, took over a little bit. And Ryan, we're the big shot behind it all, you know. And that's where we're going to jump into it right here. You have experience before jumping into it with the Bymark Game of the Week here locally in Yakima with Stevens Media Group as well. What got you into sports broadcasting? Take us through that. Like, what was like step one for you from your Seton Hall days?
Well, so it was even really before that. So, you know, I was always an athlete growing up. You know, I always played sports, soccer, roller hockey, basketball, track and field, and obviously that's what got me my scholarship cross country specifically to Seton Hall. But man, I called a lot of basketball games and football games in high school. You know, we had a really good telecommunications program headed by Mr. Merman. Never forget him. He's a great guy. And he really taught me the ropes of how to do sports broadcasting, from, you know, doing camera or doing audio, and then finally, you know, being on the air to do high school games. Shout out to my alma mater, Lacey Township High, the Lions. But yeah, man, it was just fun, man. It was really fun. You know, it wasn't so pressurized. Obviously, you know, you're not like worried about ratings or anything like that, but you know, you're just kind of getting your feet wet. You know, you're getting your chops, and that's what I did. You know, I really just try to do every game I possibly could, even to the extent of I didn't do basketball. I did basketball throughout my life, freshman, sophomore, junior year. And then senior year, I was like, you know what? I kind of want to focus more on my career, which is what I wanted it to be. I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. So I said, you know what? I'm not going to do basketball my senior year. I'm just going to call the games instead of playing in them, you know, which kind of broke my friends' hearts. And of course, that year, they ended up going to the state championship final, the year I was supposed to be like the starting point guard or one of the point guards. And so, of course, that's how it worked out. But it was still good. It was still good.
It always works out like that.
Always, right? Yeah. You know, you leave a team, they win the Super Bowl, you know. But no, I mean, it just was really fun. And that's how I got my feet wet there, and how I got my start in sports broadcasting. And then I knew that Seton Hall had a really good radio program. WSOU, shout out to WSOU. I think actually they just are going to win the Marconi Award for the best college station again in the country. So it's just the top of the class when it comes to college radio. And you know, their main puppy was Seton Hall basketball, men's and women. And, you know, I kind of worked my way up there and called men's and women's games. You know, we got to travel the country doing it too. We got to go on the charter flights. We got to cover the games. And it just was so fun going to the different Big East schools, because, you know, Seton Hall is in the Big East Conference. So it just, dude, it was so fun. Like, I really miss those days of being able to go on the radio and call a basketball game for Seton Hall. That was so special. But yeah, man, that's kind of how I got my start. And I continued it into college, and then of course, we let the bosses know here that we were interested in doing sports broadcasting and doing games here in the Yakima area, and we've had a ton of fun with that. But yeah, so high school, college is really where I got my start, and it's been a blast ever since, man.
It's a lot, man. That's a lot. What's your most memorable game you called at Seton Hall? Before we get into the Valley, what was the most memorable game? You did a lot of traveling. Was this when UConn was out of the Big East, when they made it more of like private schools, or was
so
it?
my freshman year, I did I call any games my freshman year? No, I did. So okay, so let me backtrack. So my freshman year, 2016, that was the year that we still had Louisville and UConn and Syracuse and all those, Notre Dame and everything. My sophomore to senior year is when the Big East was just the Catholic Seven. So I did get 1 year of UConn. I never called a UConn game, but my freshman year I did call a women's game. They played DePaul in Chicago, and Chicago, because of that trip, is like my favorite city. Like, it's such a great city. But my most memorable call was probably when I got on ESPN radio. So they Seton Hall was upset Villanova. That was their main rival when I was there. Still is, really, to me. And they upset Villanova. I was on the call at home for that at the Rock in Newark, New Jersey. And my call actually got on ESPN radio because it was such a big upset, So that was really cool. Like when they did the Sports Center updates, and my call was on it. So that was so cool nationally. That was a big one. And I wasn't on the call for it, but when Seton Hall won the Big East championship my senior year against Villanova, I did the pre and post game show called Hall Line, which was like, we were doing it for hours because we got so many calls, and obviously it was a big moment. But the Seton Hall Villanova game was definitely my most memorable call because of the gravity of the upset. And yeah, man, I mean, getting on Sports Center, like, that's so cool. You know what I mean? So for a college kid to be able to say that, it was really cool.
I mean, who wouldn't want their voice on ESPN, right?
Yeah.
When it comes back, especially no matter the call. What years were you at Seton Hall?
So 2016, I'm sorry, no, I graduated in 2016. Let me backtrack. So I graduated in 2016. So from 2012 to 2016.
And of course, you're the voice, Ryan, on the radio with Hot 99.7 right now here in the Valley. For those that want to tune in and catch Ryan in the afternoons for today's greatest hits, what steered you towards more of a today's hits modern music for radio instead of the sportscaster side post college, post play by play?
Yeah, for sure. So I ended up doing. I've always loved hip hop. I've always loved pop, hip hop, R&B music, even with my love of sports as well. So it kind of went hand in hand. And I ended up doing a hip hop show at Seton Hall WSOU for 3 years, my sophomore year to my senior year. And I just kind of fell in love with it. I fell in love with the industry. I fell in love with doing the show and doing mixes and just talking and playing the music I loved, which was hip hop, R&B, and a little bit of pop mixed in there as well. Because actually WSOU is a world famous heavy metal station, because because Seton Hall, if people aren't familiar, is near New York City, and New York City doesn't have any rock stations, really. I don't think they might now,
really?
But
New York City,
dude, it's all like pop and hip hop, and I don't even think they have country. Like it's mostly pop and hip hop, but
gotcha.
But yeah, there's not a lot of heavy metal stations. I know that. I don't think there's any there might be rock stations, but I don't think there's any heavy metal stations. So, but obviously I wasn't into that music, but I got my chops doing that shift as well, the heavy metal shift. But I wanted to do hip hop radio, and so I did a specialty show for 3 years, as I mentioned, and man, just fell in love with it, man. Just fell in love with the music, fell in love with again, just doing the show, and that's kind of what steered me more to the music side. I always said to myself, I'm like, I really want to be like, a good example is Peter Rosenberg. He does the hip hop show, the morning show on Hot 97, legendary hip hop station in New York City. And then he also does the afternoon shift with Han and oh God, what is it? What's his name? I forget his name. His name is totally spacing. But he does an afternoon drive on ESPN radio. So, like, I'm like, all right, I want his career. Like, he does both. He does the music and he does the sports. And that was a big selling point for me coming here, to Yakima. Like, it was proposed to me that I would do the shift that I do on Hot 99.7, and then also do some sports and be involved with the sports station with calling games. So that's really what drew me here. So, doing both here is amazing, man. So I love it. But the music, man, is just like, I just always love music, always love sports. So to be able to do both here is definitely really cool.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome to hear. So if I approached you right now as a high school kid, I said, Ryan, I hear you on Hot 997. I see you covering our games here in the Valley. I want to get to do what you do, but more the sports side. Step one, what advice would you give someone in high school, maybe a little younger in middle school, but someone approaching you saying, hey, I want to get into that career field. What steps should I take? Starting today, what's the first step I should take?
Well, the number one first step is to get involved. Like, get involved in any type of telecom class or radio class. Look it up, do your research. But if your school has a telecommunications program, get involved in that, even if it's not for like credit. Like, get involved. Volunteer your time too. Like, don't ever say no to something. You know what I mean? Like, John Fanta, who was a good friend of mine, he does Big East basketball for NBC Sports now. He does some college football as well. I've always and he was younger than me, but I always see him saying this on his interviews. He's like, just be willing to say yes all the time when it comes to any type of sports broadcasting opportunity, whether it's doing stats or doing replay, doing the camera work, doing a technical board, or, just I'm never like a big proponent of like doing internships where you're like getting coffee all the time, but like just be willing to help out. I think that's kind of the biggest thing. And then that's going to bring on opportunities for you to get your feet wet, as I said before, and then move up in the business, So, and that's really what I did, like in high school, I started out doing camera and then doing TD work. And then I got on air, then I got on the TV and on the radio, and just be willing to like try new things too. Like, we had a TV station in high school, but we didn't have a radio station, but we kind of like faked it. We did like a fake radio show that we put on TV, so it's just really fun, man. It's all really fun stuff if you love what you do as well. So, but the first step I would say is just, be willing to say yes to the opportunity, and then make the best of it. Do your best, obviously do your research and practice and get better with each broadcast. But definitely the first step is just get involved, man. Get involved in any type of sports broadcasting, anything that your area offers, for sure.
When you say jump into a tech school for telecommunications,
Yeah,
like a
man.
tech school of some sort, or go straight to university or college for that 4-year degree? If you had to look back before your time at Seton Hall, would you say, yeah, maybe I should have gone to tech school before Seton Hall? But I know you had that the athletic scholarship, so that kind of steered you more towards Seton Hall for that's for your scholarship. But say no one has a scholarship, Ryan have a scholarship. Would you go to the tech school first and then go get a bachelor's in like media or communications, or would you just strictly focus on one or the other?
I don't think there's a wrong answer there, to be honest with you. Like, if there is a radio school or like you said, tech school, I know Full Sail is something that a lot of people look at. There are sports broadcasting schools, I think now, if I'm not mistaken, that just offer that. So if you want to go that route, totally understandable. I mean, a lot of times it comes down to finances, or it comes down to where you live, but there really isn't a wrong answer there. I think for me, the reason why I chose Seton Hall, obviously, because like you said, I got a scholarship and I got a lot of my college paid for, which was a super blessing. But I also chose it because it was near New York City, right? That was a big factor, the media capital of the country. And then, just being at a basketball school. I loved calling basketball. It was my favorite. And being at a basketball-driven school, which was another factor. And then also the internship opportunities, being near New York City. You know what I mean? I interned for Westwood One Radio, kind of experienced the producing side, which, was great. But it was kind of like, I knew I didn't want to do that. I knew I wanted to be on the air. But it was still great, kind of experiencing what it was like behind the scenes. So it was a mixture of the internships, the city, being closer to there, and basketball. But it really just comes down to what you're comfortable with. I always tell people that, like, even when it comes to a job, if it makes you happy, like, go and do it. And if it's the best opportunity for you, like, definitely go and do it. So again, like, whether it's a technical school or a university, like, if it offers what's best for you, that's where I would do. That's what I would do. That's where I would go and lean towards, for sure.
And failure. Don't be afraid to fail, right? No matter what it is you're looking for.
Yeah, don't be afraid to fail, man. Like, you got to ask questions. Sometimes you got to fail to learn. I've really learned. I'm still learning that. I'm 32 and I'm still learning that. And but a lot of it comes down to experience. I think a big thing too is, like, a lot of companies and broadcasters hire based on your experience. Like, you could have the best grades and you could be a great person, but if you don't have that experience and you don't know what you're doing, like, that's a big, like, red flag. So I think my best advice too would be to just gain the most experience you can, whether it's behind the scenes, on the camera, on the mic. just do everything you can so you're well-rounded enough to where companies are like, oh, he's really well-rounded. He or she is really well-rounded. Like, we want to hire them, so that's definitely important too.
Good piece of advice. Maybe I need to follow that advice too, man. What am I doing? What am I doing? 32. We're doing this. What am I doing? No,
dude, and that's the other thing. Like, timelines are so different for everybody. You know what I mean? Like, that's the other thing too. Like, don't give up. Like, I'm guilty of that too. Like, I see a lot of my peers, like, they're doing this and they're doing that. Why am I doing that? But life just moves at different paces for different people. But as long as you're putting the work in and you're trying and you're getting that experience, like, that's all that matters.
Experience definitely adds up when it comes to it. Now we're gonna jump into the Valley, Ryan. So you are a New Jersey native.
Yes.
What's the disparity in sports? I want to say disparity, but like the competition when it comes to it. Like, what's the more popular sport in Jersey to like Yakima? Yakima, like soccer and baseball is very popular here, basketball as well. Like when you from Jersey, what was the most popular high school sport over there? And you're like, whoa, this is like a total like 180, not like a cultural shock, but just like, whoa, it is totally different here when it comes to their sports compared to New Jersey, where I'm from.
I would probably say in my area, at least, the high school football team was like, the business over there. You know what I mean? Like, they were like the top dog. But New Jersey, like, as a state, I would say soccer is getting very popular, but basketball, man, like basketball, that New York, New Jersey area has so many great basketball teams, whether it's St. Anthony's or, St. Anthony's not around anymore, but St. Anthony's was a powerhouse. There's just so many great basketball schools, and New Jersey is typically a really good place for basketball. Also, track and field and cross country are actually pretty big too. Like, I know cross country, a lot of New Jersey schools, at least when I was in high school, were powerhouses as well. But when I came over here, it's funny, like, wrestling is so big over here.
Yep, I forgot wrestling. Wrestling's huge here in the Valley.
Wrestling, huge. I mean, we have some of the best high school wrestlers in the country here in Washington and in the Valley as well. So shout out to all of them. And basketball here is pretty big too, as we know, man. Basketball, baseball, like, shout out to the Davis girls. They just won state last year. Sela baseball is always good. The Zilla, the men's team, the game that we called, which we'll get into it a little bit, I'm sure, but there are so many great basketball schools, both on the men and women's side here, or boys and girls side here in high school. So shout out to all of them. But yeah, but I would say the biggest difference is football isn't super big around here, like in terms of high school compared to New Jersey, but it's still pretty big. I mean, obviously it's football, but yeah, that was probably some of the changes that I noticed.
And I gotta get to it. So you're a Jets fan. Before we're going to jump in the Valley next, I'm kind of going around everywhere,
That's all right.
Old time's sake, we used to talk about sports podcast. We used to talk sports and ball all across the country, both high school, college, as well as the pros. But with the Jets, are you salty that Aaron Rodgers left? I got to ask, because he came into New York this last week, well, technically New Jersey, and got the win. You a little salty about that, or are you okay that you're like, good riddance, get out of here, we don't care?
Dude, I am so salty about it. I will be the first to admit it. That was our Super Bowl. I don't think people understand. Like, that was our Super Bowl. That was the one win. Honestly, we could lose every game for the rest of the season. Obviously, I'll be bummed about it, but that was the one win I wanted, And here's my thing with Aaron. Like, Aaron, I used to love Aaron. Like, before he kind of, turned into a little bit of a diva, I thought he was an incredible quarterback. I thought he was probably the most talented thrower of the football ever. Like, he just knew how to sling it, right? But with the Jets, like, I don't know. Like, obviously that first year was a wash. And a matter of fact, I remember we were watching that game together.
Yeah, you came over for that, right?
But
his highlight was running the flag out.
Yes,
it was. Out of the tunnel.
But the second year, here's my thing. Like, obviously the second year was a disaster. His stats weren't as bad as people said they were, but a lot of his stats were also garbage time stats against bad teams, and he didn't really perform against the good teams. But anyway, my thing with Aaron and that comment he made the other day about he wanted to beat everybody associated with the Jets, and I'm like, I get that when somebody tells you can't play for me and you want to prove them wrong, right? But I just felt like he kind of had a little bit of a victim mentality. Like, the Jets really gave him everything he wanted in terms of players. Yeah, they gave him everything. Devontae Adams, the coaching staff, his buddy Nat Hackett. I mean, Randall Cobb. Randall Cobb couldn't play anymore, So they gave him a lot, and for him to kind of diss the Jets like that, I wasn't too happy about it. I get they made him fly all the way out just to tell him they couldn't. I get that could have been a phone call. I get it, but the Jets also did give him a lot. So I thought he could have been a little bit more gracious, but yeah, you're damn right. I wanted that win. I wanted the Jets to win the game.
We get that one win against Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
The one win. The
Yeah.
one win.
Yeah.
And so, all right, now back to the Valley. We'll get back to the Valley talk here now. We used to be a part of this. You've continued it on. Thank you for that, keeping the sports coverage here in the Yakima Valley going on. What's one takeaway you have with covering the sports here in the Valley? What's the importance? That's going to be my next question. What's the importance of making sure there's coverage of these high school athletes, even on television as well as radio? The importance of the athletes and the coverage that we have going on here in the Valley.
Man, you know why it's important? Because there's just so many talented kids here, and they're kids, you know what I mean? Like they're high school kids, they're young kids that put a lot of work in to be great at their craft. Even though they're in high school, you know, they still have a lot of responsibilities. Some have jobs, some have, you know, family lives, some have, you know, obviously they have school they have to deal with, right? But they always put their best foot forward and they perform really well. And, you know, I just feel like that should be covered. You know, I feel like high school is just as important as college, just as important as the pros. Now, it might not bring in a ton of media revenue, but it's important to cover it because that's where these kids get their start when they go on to be Cooper Cups and all these great players, you know, because that's where you get your foundation. So I just think it's super important to cover both the boys and girls here in the Valley with any type of high school sport. You know, we've done softball, we've done baseball, basketball, football, we've done some soccer. So it's just super important to give them coverage too, because they also work their tails off and they have a lot of other stuff going on. And man, the talent here is really great, man. The Valley has a lot of talented athletes, just as well as every other place in the country too, you know, but I think it's super important for them to get that exposure too, because they work hard. And, you know, I'm proud of it, man. I'm proud. And kudos to you. Like, I remember like you were really steadfast in pitching this idea of the Bi-Mart game of the week to Lori and Justin, our bosses. And obviously the corporate execs approved it. But that was because of you too. Like you definitely deserve a lot of credit as well for putting it together the way you did. And but you were a big point person with that, so I appreciate it, man. And to answer your question, you know, I know I'm being long with it, but yeah, I just think it's important. I think it's important to give them credit too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, a lot of talent here, a lot of talent going to continue coming through here as well. So at least I guess is really it for the episode, Ryan, here. I know you got some food waiting on you. I told you about 25, 30 minutes here, so we're approaching that. But
yeah,
what is the craziest game you've called here in the Valley when it comes to coverage here in the Yakima Valley for the game of the week?
Man, it's got to be, and you know the game, it's got to be the championship game at the Sundome here in Yakima. Zilla, and I believe it was Annie Wright, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe it was Annie Wright, yeah.
Annie Wright, the Gators. Zilla was the favorite, but Annie Wright gave them one hell of a game, man. Like Annie Wright, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Antonio, but they were up like five or 6 points with like a minute left. And Vandegraff, the stud, I believe he's going into his senior year. He was a sophomore at the time. But Vandegraff just put on a heroic performance to win the game. Again, they were down 5-6 points with a minute left. Like Annie Wright looked like they had the state championship. This was the state championship final for boys basketball. And Annie Wright looked like they had it locked up. And Zilla pulled off a miraculous comeback with under a minute. And they won the state championship. And not only did they win the state championship, they went undefeated the entire year.
Undefeated.
Yeah, and you remember how crazy that was. Like, we had the student section for Zilla right behind us. The place was packed, and it was just so fun to call. And that was so fun, man. Like, I remember, like, me and you were just going ape, you know what, you know, ape-ish, you know.
You could say ape shit.
We were going ape shit. We were going ape shit. And, man, it just, like, those kind of games, like, you know, you get your blowouts every now and then, but you know, like those kind of games are just so magical, right? They just kind of have that like magical feeling, and you have fun, and that's the best part about it. So yeah, that game. Shout out to Zilla. That was crazy.
Yeah, when Decker Vandegraff hit that game winner, dude,
I
had the call on that, and like I lost my voice after calling that game winner. He missed the initial shot, but got his own rebound and made that putback. And dude, we both lost it, dude. Like the whole Sundome lost it during that. It's amazing to see and call. That's mine, but I think one of my favorites that we called here in the Valley. It was when we first started, because we started in baseball season of 2022 when we started the game of the week. It was, I can't remember if they were playing, it was WF West. I can't remember the exact opponent, but it was when Ellensburg was in the semis, playing at Yakima County Stadium. And it was just a pitcher's duel. going at it between the, Ellensburg and their opponent. I can't remember exactly who they were playing at that time. I can look it up. That's on me not looking it up. But they had a pitcher's duel going into the 7th inning, 0-0, like few hits apiece. And I remember telling you right when we got back on air, I was like, dude, it's literally going to come to one hit and a sack bunt to move a guy over to get someone to score. They get into scoring position. And sure enough, it happened. And while Ellensburg was on the losing end of that, dude, it was just like, you can't be mad, dude. That's like when it comes to like any baseball at any level, that's that kind of game you want to see in a Final Four and on. Like it was just a pitcher's duel. Batters were making contact, but just great fielding and defense there behind their pitcher on both sides. It just literally came down to who's going to get that guy on base to make a sacrifice to get a guy in scoring position. Unfortunately, it was who Ellensburg was facing. But man, that was one of my favorite games to call too. And then you get your blowouts. You get your blowouts. It happens a lot more in football. I realize that it happens more in football than it does any other sport. Baseball, you get them too. Don't get me wrong. You do get them in baseball as well. But like football gets long, right? So it's just like there's a point where like we would stop calling the game, not calling it like they actually be on, but we start talking about other stuff, looking up stuff on ESPN, and all that, trying to keep up to date. Big one was Mariners. I remember David. I can't remember who Davis was playing, but it's when Cal Raleigh hit the clinching walk-off home run. And I look at my phone and I look at just like, dude, there's 2 outs, bottom of the 9th, Cal's up. Like it's gonna go extras, man. They're probably gonna have to go into tomorrow try to win it. And then right we're making the call, the guys next to us go, Cal just hit a walk-off. Cal just hit a walk-off. And it's just like there's those little things that you get like even when we're broadcasting, what's happening behind the scenes too. You know what that just like you're trying to call a game and you wanna jump into wait, what just happened with the Mariners? Like but you gotta keep that professional composure going to make sure the game gets called and all that. But yeah, man, a lot of talent here in the Valley, and I'm glad you've been able to keep this train running. Well, I had to step away from it. I'm glad you kept it running, keeping the exposure happening for these athletes, and not just myself and yourself, but also the athletes, the families of the athletes. Know they're putting in the time well for the games and practices that they put in, the commitment to that as well with the parents and the coaches, just everyone around the community. They appreciate the coverage, and we would hear it every day. Almost every game we go, like, wait, are you guys are the sports guys? Like it's turned into that, like, oh, you guys are the sports guys when you carry the equipment and all that. And it's cool to see that, even like a smaller town, smaller city like Yakima, but just that it doesn't go unnoticed from players, parents, and coaches and the community as well. And then hearing everything going on, I'm glad you're able to carry on that, that legacy that we started and built up and continue keeping it going. And I hope it goes on for a long time,
Me too.
I hope it goes on for a long time, man, because the Valley definitely needs the coverage, the exposure that it gets, but also needs as well.
Yeah, and shout out to you, man, and you know what? Shout out also to Justin Henriksen, our operations manager. He he really makes sure that we're on the air all the time, and if something's broken, he fixes it. And I got to give him a lot of credit too, and Lori as well, Hammermeister, for pitching the idea to the bosses who gave us the go ahead, and got us the equipment. And man, it's just so fun, and I love doing it. And again, like an important message, like if you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work. So
exactly like this.
That's right.
This. We love what we do. We're doing this,
That's
We've
right.
Talked about getting our little thing going back together with time and all that, but really it just comes out of time.
Yeah,
of course, and all sure, that. Man. So
100%.
Ryan, any final takeaways you want to add on before we call it a night? Any final word for those that will be tuning in?
Yeah, I mean, again, just, do what's best for you. If it makes you happy, go for it. Get the experience. Don't say no. Say yes to every opportunity. Get your foot in the door. And if you love what you do, man, again, it's not going to feel like work. And be passionate as well. It could be a tough business, but, pay your dues and you'll be at the top, man. I promise you, because there's been so many people that I've seen that have done that, and that went to school with me, and I see that they're also having a lot of success. So that can never steer you wrong. So and also, man, shout out to this platform. Dude, like these videos you're putting out and the editing and how it looks really good. And I'm super proud of the way it looks and what you've been doing, man. So shout out to you as well.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course.
And where can we catch your game of the week this week? We gotta give that shout out. Where can we catch you this Friday?
So football typically is going to be on 106.9 FM here in the Valley. That's KTCR because, as you know, the Mariners take top priority for 104.1 The Fan here in Yakima. So that's going to take priority. So we're going to be on 106.9 KTCR throughout the football season. If the Mariners don't play, we'll be on the Fan, but typically we'll be on KTCR. And this Friday is our first game. Actually, our first game last week got canceled because of the smoke, because of all the smoke in the valley with the fires. But our first game is going to be this Friday, Sandpoint in Idaho, taking on Davis. Davis will be at home at Zeffel, and I'll be on the call for that, 7 p.m., 106.9 FM. And throughout the season, every Friday Night Lights game for high school football will be at 7 on KTCR. And then with basketball, that'll be, more sporadic with the days, but typically at 7 for both men and women. And then baseball that's a hodgepodge. But yeah.
That's all TBD. That's all TBD.
Yeah.
Right now. We're in football season right now.
Yeah, for sure. Season. For sure. So, yeah, man, we're looking forward to having another great season with football and basketball and baseball, softball, soccer, maybe. So, we're looking forward to it, man.
And anyone looking in touch and want to help sponsor the Weimar Game of the Week as well, always looking for sponsors. Reach out to myself, reach out to Ryan, reach out to anyone with the Stevens Media team here in Yakima. Always looking for sponsors to make sure that this trend keeps on chugging along, for the coverage that we have going on. We're thankful for everyone that also sponsors that, Weimar and all their sponsors. But I think that does it, man. I appreciate your time, Ryan. Good friend of the show. And, we're talking about it, man. We're going to get a little thing going again here on the side with the Armchair Athlete Sports Talk. Again, Ryan, thank you. Thank you for all you do here for the sports coverage in the Valley. Thank you everyone that tunes in. You can find us on all social media platforms as well as YouTube for the full episode. TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. We're on there. I appreciate you guys. Again, my name is Antonio Davido, the host for the Armchair Athlete Sports Talk. See you later.
Peace.